Hey team, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle You podcast. It's your host, Lacey Iskra, and on today's episode, I am going to be giving you 10 mindset hacks that I have learned over the years that I try to implement on a daily basis or anytime that I can remember, and that I also preach to our clients on a continuous basis. And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm actually going to make this into a 2-part episode. So this episode will actually only be 5 mindset hacks, but I really had fun planning this episode out. And I also think I'm going to turn it into like a 10 reel series that I can post on my Instagram just for quick, easy digestion. But I'm really excited to go more deep into all of these mindset hacks with you and just explain how I implement them, because they definitely are a game changer. And if you can even just choose one of these to start implementing on working on, I think you're going to notice a huge difference in just the quality of your life in general. So let's just jump right into it. And this kind of goes with an episode I talked about a few weeks back of just your thoughts. And the first mindset hack is to become aware of your thoughts. And it's definitely easier said than done, but it is so cool when you start to realize that you are not your thoughts, you just have thoughts. And I think it's kind of hard, like, how do you teach someone to become aware of their thoughts? But really, if you just close your eyes and anything that comes to mind. When I first started meditating, obviously meditation and any mindfulness will help you become aware of your thoughts, but what I used to do that really helped me understand them was when I was meditating, instead of trying to like not think of anything or even to focus on one thing, I would just try to catch my thoughts as they were coming in and then either labeling them as past, present, or future thoughts. So if I was thinking about something in the past, I would be like, okay, that's a past thought. Like, what thought is going to come next? And then I would think about something that was going to happen in the future or that I had to do later that day. And I'd be like, okay, cool. That's a future thought. Label it. And then I'd be like, okay, what thought is going to help come next to me? And then I would label that thought. And I think that that was just a game changer in my meditation skills, because it really helped me just be an observer of my thoughts and not get caught down the thought loop process where you like follow your thoughts after thoughts after thoughts. So I think if you could just start there by even just closing your eyes for like a minute or two each day and just labeling those thoughts, then it will become more automatic, I guess, and it will just start to make a huge difference. And even something that you can do is you almost have to put reminders around your house to become more aware of your thoughts and like, what are you thinking right now, to pull yourself out of that constant thought loop that you just sometimes don't even realize that you're in. And if you listen to my episode a couple weeks back, we have like 50 to 70 thoughts every single day, and 90% of them are reoccurring. So the same thoughts that we had yesterday. And so it's so easy for us to just continue on our life, just thought after thought after thought, and never giving ourselves that time in between to think or to create. And so becoming aware of your thoughts is such a mindset hack. And I think awareness too is just a huge part of it, which is like why I love talking about it, because the more you know, the more you're going to be able to be like, oh, I'm just thinking. And you also don't have to identify with your thoughts, because they're not always true. Like, thoughts aren't always true. They're just continuous and we just have them all the time, but they don't always serve us. And when we start believing every thought that we have, that's when life can get really hard. And so instead, if you just observe your thoughts and choose which ones you want to believe and take action on, and choose which ones you're just going to throw away that don't serve you, you will start to notice a huge change in your mindset. And again, that's something that I'm working on with my mindset coach, because there's definitely thoughts that I have that do not serve me, that are incorrect, and that I just keep thinking and keep believing and keep taking action on, and they just don't serve me. So instead, now I'm just trying to create that break of time after I have a thought before it creates some sort of reaction in me through emotion or feeling. I'm just trying to ask myself, is that true? And then if it's not, then just moving on. And so that is mindset hack number 1. Become aware of your thoughts. And like I said, awareness is key. So put reminders around your house. What are you thinking? Put timers on your phone. What am I thinking right now? And you'll start to notice yourself become more aware. And this is also like the number 1 step to self-awareness, I believe, as well. So tip number 1, become aware of your thoughts. And tip number 2 is going to be ask your brain questions. I was doing a little research for this podcast and I came across this one article that said to do this, like to ask your brain questions, because our brain is always searching for answers. And if we ask it something, it will work its hardest to get that answer. And a lot of the times, those questions that we are avoiding asking ourselves are what we usually need to do, but we're just scared to change, or we're scared to notice the parts of ourselves that are more shadow. And what shadow really is it's just the parts of yourself that you're not necessarily proud of, that you try to avoid, that you don't want to look deeper into, that you just kind of try to suppress or put away. And that's why we avoid asking ourselves those hard questions. And that's why a lot of people avoid like setting goals or anything, because they don't want to fully accept that they're not 100% happy with where they're at. I definitely relate to this so much. Because really before I started coaching, that was my whole entire life. Like I thought goal setting was dumb. I thought vision boards were dumb. I thought like anyone that was going after any of their dreams was just dumb and delusional and blah, blah, blah. But really it was because I just didn't want to accept the parts of me that I know needed to improve, because it's hard. But being unhappy is also hard. So just start asking yourself the questions on areas that you know you need to work on, or maybe even not. Like ask yourself just harder questions. If you're not in our Facebook group, send me a message on Instagram and I'll get you in there, because we share daily or weekly journal prompts. And usually these are those questions that you want to ask yourself. So how can I be more productive? How can I love more? How can I show up as my best self? And your brain will find you answers, and it will literally tell you. It's really that simple. It's not rocket science. You just have to be willing to go a little bit deeper and just capitalize on that information that they're getting, because your brain knows and you know. And I remember I did a podcast with a gentleman months ago now, maybe even a year ago. And the biggest takeaway that I got from that was he's like, ask yourself what lies you're telling yourself. And you'll be able to make a lot of progress. And I just love that, because I think we are so quick to tell ourselves so many lies like, oh, I can never get a raise. Oh, I can't get a better job. Oh, I'm too old to start a business. Oh, I'm too old. I can't lose the weight. Oh, I've always been bigger. Oh, and like, those are all just straight up lies that you tell yourself to keep yourself comfortable, to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself secure. Because as I've said a million times, change is one of the hardest things. We don't like change. We don't want to change. Our brains are not wired to change, but our brains were wired many years ago, when there was not near as many opportunities as we have now. And so we do have to rewire that brain and that thought process a little bit. And you can just start by asking yourself questions. And obviously a great way to do this is joining the journal club and journaling every day, and utilizing those prompts and actually getting deep and getting to know yourself and asking yourself those questions that you might just be avoiding. So that's mindset hack number 2, is to ask yourself questions. Mindset hack number 3 is learn how to take criticism constructively and understand what your triggers are. So this could really be 2 mindset hacks in one, but I'm going to try to kind of lump them together here, because I think if you can learn how to take criticism constructively, you're just going to not only become a much better version of yourself, but you're also just going to be a lot happier. Because really, like, even failure is feedback. It's not actually failure. I don't know why we gave it that name, but it really just helps us learn how to improve. But I think really the difference is, and as I'm kind of just saying out all of these mindset hacks, really this is just like how to adapt a growth mindset instead of a victim mindset. And I think I recorded a podcast on growth versus victim, like when I first started my podcast. It might be time to revamp that one a little bit, but it's very hard to get out of the victim mentality, but your life just gets so much better. And I'm not saying this from a place of, oh, I'm completely growth mindset, because I'm not, which was actually news to me. And I think I told you guys this, that while working with my mindset coach, one of the tests that we had to do kind of put us on a measuring of where you were in mindset in terms of growth versus fixed. And I was actually right on the line. So like half of my characteristics were fixed mindset and half of my characteristics were growth, which I just found very, very interesting, because I always thought I had a growth mindset. And it's a lot deeper than a lot of people think. But even just imposter syndrome, which is what I struggle with primarily, is a part of fixed mindset, because that's almost an excuse to play small, is, oh, I'm an imposter. When really you're not. And so learning how to take criticism constructively is just going to help you improve. And once you understand that it doesn't have anything to do with you, like you are worthy no matter what you do, even if you do absolutely nothing, like you just being born into the world makes you worthy. And I think that that's a lot what takes people away, is because they believe that they aren't worthy, or they have to do certain things to be worthy, or certain things that people tell them make them feel less or more worthy. And really, again, and this can be a mindset hack on its own, is understand that you are worthy just for being you, for being here, for being alive, for breathing. You are worthy. So if you learn how to take constructive criticism constructively and understand that it has nothing to do with you as a person, when a person gives you criticism, it just is an opportunity for you to improve. And that's how you, if you can look at it like that and just kind of switch it as like, oh, this person isn't like trying to get me down or whatever, they're just trying to help me get better, then you're going to just start seeing a lot more happiness in your day-to-day life. And I'm not saying that all criticism is necessarily constructive either, which I guess I should have mentioned in the beginning, because there is some things that people say that just don't matter or aren't relative or whatever. But this also comes down to understanding what your triggers are. Because if someone does criticize you and you get triggered and you react, it doesn't really have anything to do with that person. It has something to do with a belief or a thought that you've experienced in your past that brought that emotion up again. And if there wasn't some sort of belief behind it, it wouldn't trigger such a reaction. Meaning, if someone calls you ugly, but you have been told you are absolutely beautiful your whole entire life, you really believe you're beautiful, your significant other tells you you're beautiful all the time, like you would just be like, okay, like I don't care what you think about my looks, like I know I'm beautiful. But if you were maybe bullied your whole life, people always called you ugly, your parents called you ugly, maybe when you and your significant other fight, they call you ugly, which is like not good. If that's the case, you should get out of that relationship. But if you have belief that maybe you are ugly, then when someone calls you that, that's going to trigger you, and you're going to be a lot more hurt than if you didn't actually believe it. So understanding what your triggers are actually also helps inform you where maybe you don't need to necessarily grow, but understanding your triggers is going to help you a lot react to situations differently. And this is something, again, that I'm currently working through, especially living with a boyfriend for the first time after 6 years of being single. And I remember me and my therapist would always joke, because I'd be like, I have no triggers. Like, I'm perfect. Like, nothing ever triggers me. But it's because I had created a life avoidant of any triggers. And so once I started living with a boy again, there definitely was some triggers coming up from my past relationships that were not very healthy. And now I'm understanding and learning how to work through those. But I think if you understand what your triggers are, then you're not going to take criticism so hard, because you'll understand that it is actually something a lot deeper than that. So learn how to take constructive criticism and implement it, I guess, should be a part of that. And then understanding your triggers as well are important. And I maybe should have done a little bit more background on what a trigger is, but really a trigger is just when something creates more of an emotion or a reaction than it probably should have in you, and it's because of a past experience to do with that. So say your partner is bothering you a whole bunch, but you never say anything, you choose not to say anything, and then all of a sudden one day you snap when he doesn't wash the dishes. Well, it doesn't really have anything to do with him washing the dishes. It has to do with everything that you didn't talk about prior to that. So that would be like a trigger for you. But anyways, that was a little bit of a side tangent mindset hack. But we are moving on to mindset hack number 4, which you've heard me talk time and time again. It is gratitude and just being grateful, which should be an obvious mindset hack by this time, but gratitude, as we all know, can change our life. The more you focus on, the more you are able to create, in a way, I guess. And it is actually work. It's called your reticular activating system in your brain. And if you think about it, it's like, you know, when you say you want to buy like a red car and you start looking at this red car and it's all over your ads on your phone and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. You see when you go to the grocery store, when you're driving down the road, all of a sudden you notice your like best friend's brother has the same car and it's everywhere. It's not that that car is actually like showing up more common than it ever had before. It's just now your reticular activating system, your RAS, is activated and it's starting to look out for those things. And so it's the same thing with gratitude. The more you look for things to be grateful for on your day-to-day life, the more your brain is going to start to literally like learn and understand how to, like, how do I explain this? It's literally going to start to look for things to be grateful for. Like, you will train your brain to look for the good instead of the bad. And it's the same with opposite. Like, if you always are noticing everything negative in your life, everything that's bad going on, you're always talking about it, you're always sharing about it, you're always complaining about it, you will attract more negative things into your life. Like, that is just how it works. And I think that the more you can practice gratitude, it doesn't take long for you to notice it start paying off either. And then your brain is just in a more positive state, because even when something that isn't super awesome happens to you, you've almost trained yourself to look for the good in it. And there usually is, even no matter how bad something is, there usually can be something positive that comes out of it. And if you can just start to look for that, then you will start to transform your life. And like I said, it does not take long for you to see the benefits, but the best way to do this is just staying consistent with it and implementing a gratitude practice. And something that I love that our head coach Jensen taught when she talks about gratitude is always look for things that have happened in the past 24 hours when you're doing it on a day-to-day basis. And I think that this is just super important, because that, for me, really helped me like reflect on each day backwards and being like, okay, what happened yesterday that I was grateful for? And now when I go throughout my days, because I don't want to sit there and ponder for 15 minutes, I think about it like, oh, look at that. I didn't have to wait in line at the grocery store. Perfect. I'm grateful for that. And then, oh, I lock my keys in my car, but I'm grateful that 1, I'm able to afford a tow truck. 2, I have my phone on me so I could call a tow truck, because that would be way worse if my phone was in there. And you'll start to just see like the good in everything, and it really does help train you, but you obviously do have to stay and learn how to be consistent of it. But I would argue that gratitude is like the most important mindset hack, that if you can just learn to adapt an attitude of gratitude, you will really see a difference in your mindset. And we really notice it with our clients who practice it. So implementing a daily gratitude practice, whether you do that first thing in the morning, or right before you go to bed, or what I used to do, because for years I told myself I wanted to be a person that did gratitude and I just never did it. Because I never bought a gratitude book, I just started saying it out loud. And I started saying it out loud while I would drive to Starbucks. And I actually picked a gratitude building. I'm sure I've told this story. I picked a gratitude building that every time I seen that building, I would say 3 things I'm grateful for. And I actually would drive by that building usually 4 times a day, because I drive by it when I would go to Starbucks to work, then I drive home, then I drive back by it again when I would go to the gym. And it was crazy because it was maybe like 1 or 2 months into doing this that, and I would like say it out loud as I was driving, like, I am grateful for, and you feel kind of silly because you're in your vehicle by yourself, like talking to yourself. But I can't really remember the timeline exactly, but eventually I actually started feeling like almost endorphins as I would drive by that building without even saying anything that I'm grateful for. So I could feel a physical reaction to me being grateful that like uplifted my spirits. And it's like, really, that should be the goal. That's how I want to feel all day, every day. So you just have to always be in a state of gratitude, and it'll change your life. So that is mindset hack number 4. And last but not least for today's episode is, if you want to make a change, start with small steps. And I could preach about this forever and ever till the day that I die. And just trust me on this. I work with hundreds of women, if not thousands, probably over 1,000 by now, have been on our team. And I've learned a lot about change. I've learned a lot about how to help others people's change. I've learned how to influence change on people. And lucky for me, it's one of the hardest things to do in the world. And I picked it as a job, is to help people change. And really at the end of the day, I think that people need to like have to be at the point where they want to change. And I would have told this story probably like 2 years ago, but it was really when I know I needed to change, and just like what happened to me, and I started experiencing anxiety, and it was because I kept saying I was going to do something and then never doing it. And literally the pain of staying the same and continuing to tell this story of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be, but not actually doing it was greater than the pain of change. Because change is hard and it's confusing and it's frustrating, but that's why you hire help, and like we can help you through it. But you do, I think, have to hit a certain point before you'll actually change. Because I mean, I think there's people out there that will probably just change without much thought, but they're probably pretty rare. I do think you have to be in a bit of pain and really, really want it, or you'll just continue to go back to the older version of you, which is a lot more safe. Not necessarily better, but safe, because like I said, your brain doesn't like change. But so if you want to change, there's lots of things that you can do. You can figure out your why. Your why has to be really strong. You can put a plan in place. You can hire, you can help, you can get accountability. But really what you want to do is take small steps and just let it be easy. We live in such a world of the all or nothing mindset. We want everything instantly. We want it fast. We want it now. If we're not going to reach our goal within a certain amount of time, we don't want to do it. If it's hard, we don't want to do it. And you really just have to let it be easy. And so what I mean by that is, if you really want to start any habit, you just have to make it so small that you seem silly if you don't do it. So reading one line out of a book of a page if you want to start reading more. Saying one thing you're grateful for out loud if you want to start practicing gratitude. Going for a 10-minute walk 3 times a week if you want to start getting in better shape. Eating more fruits and vegetables if you want to start improving your diet, instead of cutting out all carbs and never eating cake again until you binge and you overdo it. Or going to the gym 6 days a week for 2 weeks, but then you're so sore, you're so tired, and all of a sudden you can't keep up with your normal life, so you quit. Or practicing gratitude every single day, but as soon as your job gets busy, you just completely go off track because it's not sustainable. Or I can't remember what my other example was, but you get the point. You really have to understand that if you want to change, you have to make it easy on you, and you can't just fully jump into things. Most humans can. I'm not saying there's no exceptions to these rules, so don't come at me like I did this and I just jumped right in. Great, good for you. Lots of the times if you do jump right in and you go full board, that's also a sign of not necessarily being in the healthiest mindset. So just slowly incorporate things, and you really just have to start looking at where you want to be in a year compared to where you want to be in 3 months. And you just have to play the long game a little bit, because change is a long game and you're always changing, you're always growing, you're always learning. And as soon as you get to reach one level, you just want to be to the next level. So that is tip number 5, or the 5th mindset hack. And like I said, I want to keep these podcasts a little bit shorter and just easy to digest and listen to. So I'm going to wrap this up here, and I'll be back next week with mindset hacks 6 through 10. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if you haven't already rated and subscribed the podcast, of course, I would appreciate it. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon.